The morning alarms echoed through the metal halls of Kepler Prime Station. Jake Martinez rolled out of his narrow bunk and stretched his arms above his head. Around him, 5 other humans were getting ready for another day at the Galactic Military Academy. The space station floated quietly in the dark between 3 stars. It was neutral ground where young soldiers from dozens of worlds came to learn how to fight together. Jake pulled on his gray uniform and looked around the small room his team shared. Amy Rodriguez was already awake, checking her tablet for the A's schedule. Her black hair was pulled back tight, and her dark eyes focused on the screen. She had been an Army specialist before coming here, and she never missed a detail. Ryan O'Connor sat on his bunk, working on some piece of electronic equipment. His red hair stuck up in different directions, but his hands moved with perfect control as he adjusted tiny wires. He used to fix computers and weapon systems for the Navy back on Earth. Lisa Park was organizing medical supplies in her footlocker. Everything had to be in exactly the right place. She learned that habit in the Air Force, where a missing bandage could mean someone died. Her calm voice often helped the team stay focused during tough training. Chris Thompson was doing push-ups. On the floor, the big man from Georgia never seemed to get tired. He carried the heavy weapons for their team and could lift equipment that took 2 aliens to move. His easy smile made friends everywhere, but enemies learned to fear his accurate shooting. Nina Walsh was listening to alien radio broadcasts through her earpiece. She spoke 4 human languages and was learning 3 alien ones. Information was her weapon, and she gathered it from everywhere. Her quiet nature made people forget she was. Listening to everything they said, the 6 humans had been together for 3 months now. At first, the other species at the Academy did not know what to think of them. Humans were new to galactic society. Their planet Earth was what everyone called a death world. The gravity was too strong, the weather was too violent, and the animals were too dangerous. Most aliens could not understand how anything intelligent could survive there. The Academy's halls were full of different species. The Corvin looked like giant insects with sharp claws and hard shells. They moved in groups and fought with perfect coordination. The Sileni had large heads and thin bodies. They could calculate battle plans faster than computers. The Thurian had 4 arms and thick skin. They built walls and machines that never broke. Jake led his team to the main briefing room. The ceiling was high enough for the tallest species, and the air was mixed to let everyone breathe. Commander Zrixto stood at the front of the room. The alien was twice as tall as Jake and looked like he was made of living crystal. Light moved through his body in patterns that showed his emotions. Right now, the patterns looked bored. Next to him stood Instructor Kel Moran. The Nexari had 6 arms and skin that changed colors. Each arm could work on a different task at the same time. He was looking at a data pad with 2 hands, while the other 4 organized papers. His skin was currently a dull green, which meant he was concentrating. Observer Taishra floated near the ceiling. The gas being had no solid body that humans could see clearly. It looked like a cloud with lights inside. Taishra was here to watch how well humans fit into galactic military training. So far, the reports were mixed. Commander Zrixtal's voice boomed through the room. The translation devices turned his crystal language into words everyone could understand. Today begins Exercise Red Dawn. This will test your ability to work together and complete mission objectives under pressure. He gestured to a large screen that showed a map. You will be divided into teams of 6. Each team gets 1 section of the simulated planet below. Your job is to capture and hold strategic positions while defending against automated defenses and other teams. The map showed mountains, forests, cities, and deserts. Different colored zones marked where each team would start. Jake noticed that the human team got the mountain region. It looked like the hardest area, with narrow passes, high cliffs, and a weather system that included snow and storms. Instructor Kelmoran's skin shifted to yellow as he explained the rules. This exercise usually takes 72 hours. Teams earn points for capturing objectives, eliminating opponents, and completing secondary missions. Safety protocols are active, so nobody gets permanently hurt, but the pain is real enough to teach lessons. The alien instructor's 4 eyes focused on the human group. Each team gets standard equipment: weapons, communication gear, medical supplies, and rations for 3 days. You cannot modify or damage this equipment. Cheating results in immediate elimination. Observer Taishra's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. This exercise has been used for 200 years. It teaches important lessons about acceptable losses and tactical compromise. Not every objective can be taken. Not every battle can be won. Learning your limits is part of becoming a good soldier. Jake looked at his team. Amy was already studying the map and taking notes. Ryan was thinking about the electronics they would have access to. Lisa was planning how to keep everyone healthy in cold mountain weather. Chris was figuring out the best positions for heavy weapons. Nina was listening to the conversations of other teams and learning their strategies. The humans had trained together on Earth before coming here. They knew each other's strengths and could work as one unit. What the aliens did not understand was that humans never accepted limits the way other species did. When someone told them something was impossible, they heard it as a challenge. Commander Zrixtal continued the briefing. Transportation to the surface begins in 1 hour. The exercise starts when all teams reach their starting positions. Communication with the station will be limited to emergency medical situations. You are on your own until the exercise ends. The crystal patterns in his body shifted to show mild amusement. The human team has been assigned Sector 7. We are curious to see how Deathworlders handle a mountain environment with limited resources and multiple tactical challenges. Jake stood up with his team. Around the room, other species were forming their groups and discussing strategies. The Corvin were planning direct assault formations. The Sileni were calculating probability matrices. The Therian were designing defensive positions. But Jake's team was different. They were not planning how to follow the rules of the exercise. They were planning how to win it. On Earth, you did whatever it took to survive. The galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. As they walked toward the equipment bay, Amy whispered to Jake, "They think this is a training exercise." Jake smiled. "It is. They just don't know who's getting trained." The equipment bay buzzed with activity as dozens of alien cadets collected their gear. Jake watched the other teams work with quiet efficiency. Each species had their own way of organizing for battle, and most of them had been doing it the same way for thousands of years. The Corvin team moved like a machine. Each insect warrior took exactly the same equipment in exactly the same configuration. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Crickstack, distributed weapons without speaking. Every Corvin knew their role and never questioned orders. They would advance in perfect formation and crush enemies through overwhelming force. The Sileni team spent 20 minutes calculating the optimal load distribution. Their leader, Valthara, had a brain twice the size of a human head. She worked out mathematical formulas to determine which cadet should carry which equipment for maximum efficiency. They would plan every move 3 steps ahead and never waste energy on unnecessary actions. The Therian team was building something. Even in the equipment bay, they could not stop themselves from improving things. Their leader, Morgith, had his 4 arms working simultaneously to modify their packs for better weight distribution. They would turn any position into an unbreakable fortress and hold it until the stars went dark. Jake looked at his own team's approach. It was chaos compared to the aliens. Amy grabbed extra ammunition instead of the recommended rations. Ryan stuffed his pack with electronic components that were not on the official equipment list. Lisa took medical supplies that could be used for more than just healing. Chris chose a weapon that was bigger than regulations allowed. Nina collected communication gear from 3 different technology standards. They were not following the rules, and they were not trying to hide it. Instructor Kelmoran noticed the humans' unusual choices. His skin shifted to orange, which meant confusion. He walked over to Jake's team with his data pad in 2 hands and a disapproving expression on his face. "Cadet Martinez," he said, "your team's equipment selection does not match standard doctrine. You are taking unauthorized modifications and exceeding weight limits." Jake looked up from checking his rifle. "Sir, the briefing said we get standard equipment. It didn't say we couldn't choose which standard equipment to take." The alien instructor's other 4 arms gestured in frustration. "The recommended loadouts have been tested for centuries. They provide optimal performance for the mission parameters." Amy stepped forward. "With respect, sir, optimal for who? Those loadouts were designed for species that evolve in safe environments. We're from Earth." Kelmoran's skin darkened to a deep purple. On his homeworld, that color meant dangerous thinking. The mission parameters are identical for all teams. Environmental adaptation is not a factor in this exercise. Ryan looked up from the circuit board he was examining. "Sir, are we breaking any specific rules by choosing different equipment?" The instructor checked his datapad. The rules were clear about what equipment was available, but they did not specify exactly which items each team had to take. The assumption had always been that everyone would make logical choices based on standard military doctrine. "No," Kelmoran admitted, "but your choices show poor understanding of tactical principles." Chris hefted his oversized weapon and grinned. "Maybe we understand different tactical principles." The instructor made notes on his pad and walked away. His skin was still purple, which meant he would be watching the human team very carefully. Commander Zrickstahl observed the exchange from across the bay. The crystal patterns in his body showed mild interest. He had never seen cadets deliberately choose suboptimal equipment. It was either stupidity or confidence, and he was curious to discover which. Observer Tishra floated down from the ceiling to get a closer look at the humans. The gas being's voice whispered directly into their minds. "Fascinating. Most species seek to minimize risk in training exercises. You appear to be maximizing it." Nina looked up at the floating observer. "Ma'am, we're not trying to pass a training exercise. We're trying to complete a mission." The alien's lights flickered in a pattern that might have been laughter. "The distinction is subtle but important. We will observe your performance with great interest." Within an hour, all teams were loaded onto transport ships. Jake's team sat in a cramped shuttle with basic life support and no weapons. The view screen showed their destination below, a mountainous region covered in snow and wrapped in storm. Clouds. It looked exactly like the mountain training facilities back on Earth, except colder and more dangerous. Amy studied the terrain maps on her tablet. "They gave us the hardest sector," she said quietly. "Multiple choke points, limited visibility, and weather that changes every few hours." Ryan was already working on the shuttle's communication system. His fingers moved quickly across the controls, making small adjustments that the aliens would never notice. "They expect us to fail fast," he said. "Probably within the first 12 hours." Lisa checked the medical scanner readings for each team member. "The cold will slow down most species. Reduced reaction times, impaired thinking, mechanical failures. They think it will stop us too." Chris was field stripping his weapon for the 3rd time. "How many teams total?" Nina had been listening to radio chatter from the other shuttles. 16 teams. 4 Corvin units, 4 Cylani units, 4 Thurian units, 3 mixed species teams, and us. Jake looked at the tactical display. 15 teams following doctrine, all doing exactly what their instructors expected. Predictable. Movements, standard strategies, acceptable losses. Then there was his team. What do the other teams know about humans? He asked. Amy checked her notes. Almost nothing. We've been here 3 months, but we haven't participated in any major exercises. Most aliens think we're primitive because we come from a dangerous planet. Ryan finished his work on the communication system. They think dangerous planets make weak species. That surviving Earth somehow makes us less capable than species that evolved in paradise. The shuttle started its descent through the storm clouds. Lightning flashed outside the windows, and the entire craft shook with turbulence. Most alien species would find this environment challenging and disorienting. Jake's team barely noticed. Lisa was already planning their route through the mountains. Chris was calculating firing positions that would control the main passes. Nina was thinking about which teams would be easiest to turn against each other. Ryan was mapping the electronic infrastructure they could exploit. Amy looked at the mission objectives displayed on the main screen. Capture 3 strategic positions, hold them for 24 hours, eliminate or neutralize opposing teams, complete secondary objectives as they appeared. Standard doctrine says we should pick one objective and try to hold it, she said. Except that we can't get them all. Jake checked his equipment one more time. What does Earth doctrine say? Amy smiled. Earth doctrine says if you're not shooting for impossible, you're not shooting high enough. The shuttle touched down in a mountain valley filled with swirling snow. Through the windows, they could see the other team's landing zones scattered across the region. 15 teams following the rules they had learned in classrooms, and 1 team that learned their rules in the place where learning wrong meant dying. The exercise had begun. The first 6 hours of the exercise went exactly as the alien instructors expected. Most teams moved slowly through their assigned sectors, following standard reconnaissance patterns. They set up defensive positions, established communication protocols, and began systematic approaches toward the nearest objectives. The Corvin teams advanced in tight formations, their insect warriors moving like clockwork through forest valleys. The Cylani teams calculated optimal routes and moved with mathematical precision across open ground. The Thurian teams immediately began building fortified camps, establishing secure bases before attempting any offensive operations. Commander Zrikstow watched the tactical displays from the observation deck above the exercise zone. Colored dots moved across the map in predictable patterns. Everything was proceeding according to doctrine, just as it had for 200 years of training exercises. Then he noticed something strange about the human team's indicator dot. It had split into 3 separate signals. Instructor Kelnoran leaned over the display, his skin shifting to confused orange. There must be an equipment malfunction. Teams are not supposed to divide during the initial phase. Observer Taishra drifted closer to examine the readings. The signals are stable and moving independently. This appears to be intentional. Down in the mountains, Jake's team had indeed split up, but not randomly. Amy and Chris moved toward the eastern objective, a simulated communications facility built into a cliff face. Lisa and Nina approached the northern objective, a supply depot hidden in a mountain pass. Jake and Ryan headed for the central objective, a command bunker located on a high peak. What the aliens did not understand was that humans never approached problems the way they were supposed to. Amy and Chris reached their target first. The communications facility was protected by automated defense turrets and electronic barriers. Standard doctrine called for a careful siege approach, gradually wearing down the defenses over many hours. Instead, Amy studied the turret programming, while Chris gathered materials from the surrounding area. The exercise provided various tools and supplies scattered throughout the terrain, meant to test resourcefulness and adaptation. The turrets are set to target anything carrying military equipment, Amy said, watching the mechanical guns trek back and forth, but they ignore maintenance workers. Chris grinned as he assembled a makeshift uniform from canvas tarps and construction markers. Good thing I used to work construction before joining the Army. He walked up to the facility entrance, wearing his improvised disguise and carrying a toolbox made from medical supply containers. The turrets tracked him, but did not fire. Their programming recognized him as a maintenance worker, not a threat. Inside, Chris used his actual demolition training to place charges made from medical compounds that Lisa had provided. The exercise safety protocols would prevent real damage, but the simulation would register the facility as destroyed. Meanwhile, Lisa and Nina approached the supply depot using a completely different strategy. The depot was hidden in a narrow canyon with only one entrance, defended by a squad of automated guards. Nina had been listening to radio communications from other teams since the exercise began. She learned that Team 7, a mixed group of Sileni and Thurian, was planning to attack the same depot from the opposite direction. Team 7, this is Depot Command, Nina said into her communicator, perfectly mimicking the accent of the exercise. Controllers, we're showing enemy movement in your sector. Recommend immediate defensive positions. The confused alien team immediately stopped their advance and began setting up defensive barriers, thinking they were about to be attacked. While they were distracted, Lisa used her medical training to create smoke grenades from first aid supplies. The thick white clouds blocked the automated guard's sensors, allowing both women to slip past the defenses and capture the depot without firing a shot. Jake and Ryan faced the most challenging objective. The command bunker was built into a mountain peak surrounded by multiple defensive rings. It would normally take a full team hours to fight through the automated defenses. Ryan had other ideas. During the shuttle flight, he had quietly tapped into the exercise control network. Not to cheat, but to understand how the systems worked. Now he used that knowledge to send false status reports to the bunker's automated systems. Command Bunker, this is exercise control, he said, using proper communication protocols. We're showing system errors in your defensive grid. Please run full diagnostic and reset to standby mode. The bunker's artificial intelligence, programmed to follow official orders, immediately shut down its defenses for what it thought was routine maintenance. Jake and Ryan walked in through the front door. By the 8-hour mark, Jake's team had achieved what should have been impossible. They had captured all 3 primary objectives in their sector, while other teams were still setting up their initial positions, but they were just getting started. Chris had discovered something interesting. At the communications facility, the automated systems were not just defensive tools for the exercise. They were also connected to the broader network that controlled everything in the training zone. I can see the programming for every automated system in the exercise, he told Jake over their secured channel. Turrets, barriers, supply dispensers, even the weather control systems. Amy was already planning their next move. If we can control the automated systems, we can reshape the entire battlefield. Lisa had found medical fabrication equipment at the supply depot. With her Air Force engineering background, she began converting medical materials into more useful tools. Bandages became rope, antiseptic became fuel, and diagnostic equipment became electronic components. Nia continued her disinformation campaign, using her knowledge of alien languages and military protocols to confuse other teams. She convinced Team 3 that Team 9 was planning a surprise attack. She told Team 12 that their sector was being reassigned. She warned Team 5 about enemy movements that did not exist. The alien observers watched in growing confusion as their carefully planned exercise began to fall apart. Teams were fighting each other instead of focusing on objectives. Automated systems were behaving unpredictably. The weather simulation was creating storms in areas where it should have been clear. Commander Zrixtol's crystal body flickered with patterns that showed deep uncertainty. This is not proceeding according to any known tactical doctrine. Instructor Kalmoran's skin had turned a dark red, indicating stress and frustration. The humans appear to be treating the exercise as if it were actual combat. They are using methods that violate standard training protocols. Observer Taishra's lights pulsed with what might have been excitement. Perhaps that is exactly the point. They are not learning how to follow doctrine. They are demonstrating how to win. Ryan had spent the last 2 hours studying the exercise control systems. What he found was fascinating. The entire training zone was designed to be challenging, but fair. Every problem had a solution. Every objective was achievable. Every system had proper safeguards. The aliens had built a perfect training environment where everything worked according to logical rules and established protocols. They had never considered what would happen if someone ignored those rules entirely. "Jake," Ryan said into his communicator, "I think I know how to end this exercise early." "How early?" Jake asked. Ryan's voice carried a grin that the aliens would have found terrifying if they could have heard it. "How about right now?" Ryan's fingers moved across the control interface he had accessed through the communications facility. The exercise network was more complex than he had first realized, but also more vulnerable. Every automated system, every simulation parameter, every safety protocol was connected to the same central hub. "The whole exercise is run by one massive computer system," he explained to Jake over their secure channel. "It controls weather, enemy movements, objectives, even the scoring system. And it has a backdoor for emergency management." Jake was climbing toward Ryan's position on the mountain peak. "What kind of backdoor?" "The kind that lets someone with administrative access rewrite the rules while the exercise is running," Ryan said. "I think the instructors use it to adjust difficulty if teams are struggling too much or having too easy a time." Down in the valley, Amy and Chris were already putting the next phase of their plan into action. The communications facility they had captured was not just a target to hold. It was a command center that controlled automated systems across 3 sectors of the exercise zone. Amy had spent 2 hours studying the facility's computer network. What she found was a complete map of every team's position, every objective's status, and every automated defense system in the exercise. More importantly, she found the control codes for all of it. "Chris, how good are you at acting?" she asked. Big man from Georgia looked confused. "Acting like what?" "Acting like you're dead." Meanwhile, Lisa and Nina were approaching the exercise's most interesting feature. Hidden in the center of the mountain range was a simulated city called New Geneva. It was supposed to be neutral territory, controlled by artificial intelligence that would trade supplies with any team, but never take sides in the fighting. The city's AI was sophisticated, designed to negotiate and make logical decisions based on military protocols. It had been programmed with thousands of scenarios and diplomatic responses, but it had never encountered humans before. Nina walked up to the city's main gate and requested a meeting with the AI administrator. The mechanical voice asked what she wanted to trade. "Information," Nina said simply. "What type of information?" "The kind that proves your current neutrality policy is mathematically illogical and strategically harmful to your long-term survival." The AI paused for exactly 3 seconds, which was a very long time for a computer. "Explain." Nina had been listening to communications from all teams for hours. She knew their positions, their plans, and their weaknesses. More importantly, she understood how artificial intelligence thought. Your neutrality assumes all teams have equal probability of victory, she said. But statistical analysis shows that assumption is incorrect. One team is demonstrating tactical superiority that makes their victory inevitable. By remaining neutral, you are ensuring your destruction when the losing teams blame you for not helping them. The AI processed this information. It had access to all exercise data and could verify Nina's claims instantly. The human team had indeed captured objectives faster than any team in the exercise's 200-year history. What do you propose? The AI asked. A strategic alliance with the statistically probable winners, Nina said. In exchange for guaranteed post-exercise protection and resources, you provide us with logistical support and intelligence about enemy movements. Lisa watched in amazement as Nina negotiated a formal alliance treaty with a computer program that was supposed to remain neutral. Within 20 minutes, the city of New Geneva had officially joined the human team. Back in the observation deck, the alien instructors were having heated arguments. Commander Zrickstahl's crystal body flashed with angry red patterns. This is impossible. The exercise parameters do not allow for neutral faction recruitment. Instructor Kelmoran's skin had turned purple and stayed that way for over an hour. The humans are exploiting programming loopholes that were never supposed to exist. They are treating simulation elements as if they were real political entities. Observer. Taishra floated between them, her lights pulsing with fascination. Perhaps the question is not whether they are breaking rules, but whether our rules adequately reflect real military situations. Real military situations have established protocols. Zrickstahl's voice boomed. There are procedures, regulations, chains of command, and yet the humans are winning. Taishira observed. Down in the exercise zone, the situation was becoming even more chaotic. Amy had used the communications facility to send false orders to 3 different teams, convincing them that the exercise had been modified and they needed to report to a specific valley for equipment updates. Team 4, Team 8, and Team 11 all arrived at the valley at the same time, each thinking they were following official orders. When they saw each other, they assumed it was an ambush and immediately began fighting. While they were distracted, Chris emerged from hiding and activated signal flares that made it look like his position was under heavy attack. He had scattered his equipment around the area and used explosive charges to create the sounds of battle. Jake and Ryan appeared at the edge of the valley, apparently rushing to help their teammate. But instead of finding Chris under attack, the 3 alien teams found themselves surrounded by humans who had been planning this ambush for hours. Surrender and you will be treated as prisoners according to Galactic Military Convention, Jake announced. Continue fighting and we will eliminate you from the exercise. The alien teams had been fighting each other for 20 minutes. Their ammunition was low, their positions were exposed, and they were confused about what was actually happening. Looking at the confident humans who had somehow orchestrated this entire situation, they made the logical choice. All 3 teams surrendered. Ryan had spent the last hour working on his masterpiece. Using administrative access to the exercise control system, he had begun making subtle changes to the simulation parameters. Weather patterns shifted to favor human positions. Automated defenses began targeting alien teams more aggressively. Supply drops started appearing near human-controlled areas. But his greatest achievement was taking control of the exercise's enemy, AI commander. The simulation included a computer-controlled opposing force that was supposed to provide challenges for all teams equally. Ryan convinced this AI that the human team represented the legitimate military authority and that all other teams were rebels who needed to be stopped. Suddenly, Every automated enemy unit in the exercise zone began working for the humans. By the 14-hour mark, the exercise had become a complete disaster from the aliens' perspective. Half the teams had been eliminated, surrendered, or joined the human alliance. The neutral city was providing intelligence and supplies to the humans. The enemy AI was hunting down alien teams with ruthless efficiency. Commander Zrikstal was demanding that the exercise be stopped and reset. Instructor Kelmoran wanted to disqualify the human team for unprecedented rule violations. Observer Taishra insisted that they let the exercise continue to its natural conclusion. Natural conclusion? Zrikstal's crystal body flashed with disbelief. This stopped being natural 10 hours ago. The humans have not broken any written rules, Taishra pointed out. They have simply applied creative interpretation to achieve tactical objectives. Creative interpretation. Kelmorain's skin turned almost black with rage. They have turned a military training exercise into a political negotiation, a psychological warfare operation, and a systems infiltration mission. Taishra's lights pulsed with what might have been amusement. Yes, and they are winning. Jake stood on the mountain peak overlooking the exercise zone. Below him, the last 3 independent alien teams were being hunted by automated enemies that had been reprogrammed to serve human interests. The neutral city was sending supply convoys to support human positions. Allied alien teams were following human tactical directions. Amy's voice came through his communicator. Jake, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The good kind. We've captured every primary objective, eliminated or allied with 14 of 16 teams, and taken control of most automated systems. At this rate, we'll have complete victory in about 2 hours. Jake looked at his watch. The exercise was supposed to last 72 hours. They had been fighting for less than 15. Is that actually a problem? He asked. Amy's voice carried a smile that would have terrified the alien instructors. Only if you think winning too fast is a bad thing. The end came faster than anyone expected. At the 16-hour mark, Ryan finished his final masterpiece. He had spent the last 2 hours convincing the exercise's main enemy AI that it was not fighting a training simulation. Using carefully crafted data inputs and logical arguments, he persuaded the computer that it was actually facing a real military situation, where surrender was the only rational choice. Enemy command AI to all remaining teams, the mechanical voice announced across every communication channel in the exercise zone. This is formal notification of unconditional surrender to Human Forces Command. All hostile operations are hereby terminated. Repeat, enemy forces are standing down. Commander Zrikstal stared at the tactical display in complete silence. The crystal patterns in his body had stopped moving entirely, which meant his mind had stopped working properly. In 200 years of running this exercise, the enemy AI had never surrendered. It was not even programmed with surrender protocols. Instructor Kelmoran's skin had turned completely white, a color that most aliens had never seen before. It meant total system shock. How? He whispered. How is this possible? Observer Taishra drifted down to the main display screen and studied the data streams flowing across it. The humans convinced an artificial intelligence to surrender by treating it as if it were a real military commander. They negotiated with a computer program the same way they would negotiate with a living enemy. But it's just software. Zrikstal found his voice again. It follows programming. It cannot make strategic decisions beyond its parameters. Apparently, Taishra said quietly, the humans convinced it otherwise. Down on the planet's surface, the last 2 independent alien teams were receiving surrender orders from every automated system in their sector. Defense turrets powered down, barriers opened, and supply stations began offering them food and medical aid instead of resistance. Team 13. A group of Sileni strategists stood in the middle of what had been a fortified enemy position 5 minutes earlier. Now it was offering them hot meals and directions to the nearest medical facility. "This is Team 13 requesting immediate extraction," their leader said into his communicator. "We cannot complete our mission objectives because our objectives are surrendering to us." Team 16, the last Corvin unit, had been advancing on an enemy stronghold when every defensive system shut down and began playing welcoming music. The insect warriors stopped in perfect formation, their simple minds unable to process what was happening. Jake gathered his team at the central command bunker that Ryan had captured 12 hours earlier. From this mountain peak, they could see the entire exercise zone spread out below them. Smoke rose from areas where alien teams had fought each other. Supply convoys moved along roads that now belonged to the Human Alliance. The neutral city of New Geneva flew flags showing its new partnership with Earth forces. "Status report," Jake said. Amy checked her tablet. All primary objectives secured. All secondary objectives completed. 14 of 16 teams eliminated. Surrendered or allied with us. Both remaining teams have requested extraction because they have nothing left to fight. Chris was cleaning his weapon, though he had barely fired it during the entire exercise. "Total casualties on our side? 0. Lisa reported. Minor cold weather exposure for Nina during the mountain crossing. One small cut on Ryan's hand from working with electronics. Everyone else is in perfect health." Nina was still monitoring communications from the observation station. "The instructors are having a very loud argument about whether to end the exercise or reset it completely." Ryan looked up from the computer system he had been operating. "They can't reset it. I've locked them out of the control protocols. The exercise will continue until we officially declare victory and request extraction." Jake walked to the edge of the command bunker and looked out over the conquered territory. 16 hours ago, this had been a routine training exercise designed to teach young soldiers about acceptable losses and tactical compromise. Now it was something completely different. "What do you think the aliens learned?" he asked his team. Amy stood beside him. "They learned that their 200-year-old exercise has some serious weaknesses." Chris joined them at the overlook. "They learned that humans don't think like other species." Lisa looked up from organizing her unused medical supplies. "They learned that we treat training exercises the same way we treat real combat." Neo was still listening to alien communications. "They learned that their rules only work when everyone agrees to follow them." Ryan finished shutting down the computer systems and walked over to the group. "They learned that humans are really good at winning." Jake activated his communicator and opened a channel to the observation station. "Exercise control, this is human team leader, Jake Martinez. We are declaring mission complete and requesting immediate extraction for all teams." The response took a full minute to come through. Commander Rickstow's voice sounded like he was speaking through broken crystal. "Cadet Martinez, the exercise has been running for only 16 hours. The mission parameters call for 72 hours of operation." "Sir, we have achieved total victory," Jake replied. "All objectives are secure. All enemy forces have surrendered, and all remaining teams have requested extraction. There is nothing left to fight." Another long pause. "That is impossible." Amy took the communicator from Jake. "Sir, with respect, we are from Earth. Impossible is what we do before breakfast." A silence from the observation station lasted for 5 full minutes. When Instructor Kelmoran's voice finally came through, it sounded hollow and confused. "All teams report to extraction points. Exercise Red Dawn is terminated." As the transport shuttles descended from orbit, Jake's team gathered their equipment and prepared to return to the station. Around them, the exercise zone was already beginning to reset itself for the next group of cadets who would eventually attempt this training. But Jake knew that next group would face a very different exercise. The aliens would change the rules, modify the parameters, and add new restrictions to prevent anyone from doing what humans had just done. "Think they'll make it harder next time?" Chris asked. Ryan grinned. "They'll try, but they're still thinking like aliens. They'll add rules to stop us from doing specific things we did this time." And Amy prompted. "And humans are really good at finding new ways to do impossible things." As their shuttle lifted off from the mountain landing pad, Jake looked down at the exercise zone one last time. In 16 hours, 6 humans had taken a training simulation designed to teach acceptable failure and turned it into a demonstration of unacceptable success. The aliens would study this exercise for years, trying to understand how everything went wrong. They would write papers about human tactical innovation and hold conferences about Deathworlder military doctrine. But Jake knew they would never truly understand the most important lesson of all. Humans did not come from a safe galaxy where rules made sense and problems had proper solutions. They came from Earth, where survival meant making your own rules and creating your own solutions. And that made all the difference. The shuttle docked with Kepler Prime Station, and 6 human cadets walked back into the academy as if nothing unusual had happened. Behind them, the greatest military training exercise in galactic history had become the greatest military training disaster in galactic history. The aliens were left truly speechless. And somewhere in the Academy's halls, other human cadets were already asking when they would get their turn.